Hello there everybody and welcome. In this video I got 9 things worth knowing about Rainpunk. We're going to go and cover all the basics and all the more complex things in this video. We're going to talk about rain collectors, geysers, and how to crank up happiness, how much rainwater you need for what, how many blight cysts will happen when you do which thing, and a couple of strategies and inspirations for your gameplays, how to use these things. So let's get started with the basic collection matters, and that is the rain collector and the geyser. I want to start with the rain collector. So the rain collector is where you can collect the water that's currently falling. There's 3 different types, one for each season, and the rain collectors, most importantly, provide tank capacity like crazy. Every one of these bad boys provides capacity of 50 for each and every color. So I easily can use a second one as a increase for storage capacity if the need should ever arise. You don't even need to man that thing. Each and every one of these produces 1 unit of water every 7 seconds. That means 2 workers can produce 2 units of water every 7 seconds. Each season lasts 4 minutes, so you can roughly crank out more than something like 60-ish, I think I have calculated out of that. So 2 workers can easily fill up their tanks during the season and provide the water of each season, even if you would deplete it completely. That means rain collectors are totally okay and cool for buffing your workshops. The collectors are pretty much all you need to keep your workshop needs running for at least the basic things. And the geysers, I'm going to talk about them in a hot minute. They serve a bit more of a specialized use. So all in all, don't worry about finding geysers at all. You can Rainpunk away the moment you have a rain collector built and can spend a worker on that. You don't need more than that. They're really cheap on planks and quickly set up. So number 2, let's talk about the geysers. They can be only built on these fonts, and they always come with one flavor. So each geyser has always a specific water type it supports, and that's provided year-long. It's the only way of providing a certain color year-long. So that is really, really important, as sometimes it can matter, as some industries want a certain color, so I'm going to talk about that later too. But all in all, geysers are not as much of a pressing matter for your starting Rainpunk industry as you might initially think. Or I did think that, at least. What they are really good for, what I really like to recommend here to each and every new player, these bad boys can provide you a lot of porridge, especially if you happen to stumble over a green one early on. Combine that with a field kitchen and you have early porridge quite easily, or whatever recipes, whatever workshop you can grab that recipe from elsewhere. The moment you find a geyser, you basically are pretty well fit for porridge production, and that is really something worth knowing about. The rest of it, well, it is not as important as other things. I would never consider a geyser as important as fertile ground, but like I said, it can provide a super nice boost to the early food production, especially when you have the luck to run into a green one. Now, number 3, let's talk about the wonderful things that you can't do, and let's start with the happiness part. So workshops can take Rainpunk engines in, you need pipes for that, and these pipes are spent. If you now decide to destroy the workshop, you won't get those pipes back, so choose wisely. When you have them installed, you have 2 engines, one for happiness and one for productivity. I'm going to start with the happiness one because that's easier to explain. You have a knob here that you can crank up or crank down. The higher it is cranked up, the more water it will use. Every pip here will spend 2 units of rainwater per minute. So every one of these pips requires 8 rainwater per season. So that brings us up to the point that each one of these rain collectors can actually get your workshops through a lot of things, as if we take that calculation further, we need for an entire year 24 units of rainwater per workshop, roughly, if you are that lucky that your storms are still short. But all in all, one rain collector can provide a steady support for one workshop constantly by just doing that. If you want to support more workshops, then you start needing those geysers. But basically, you can easily support 2 workshops on a low resolve gain like that. If you crank it up to 2 pips, the people will be even happier here. You can use this for 2 main purposes that I personally see here. Purpose 1 is a pretty clear one. If the storm is really rough, you can pack in the people that are especially unhappy and turn on the Rainpunk soothing. This is especially powerful on larger workshops, as the costs don't change if the workshop is larger. I don't agree with that mechanic, but it is as it is. So if you happen to run into a workshop that has 4 worker slots, these are perfect for Rainpunk soothing. The other method that you can use the happiness bonus for is during the good times of the year. So if you want to produce lots of reputation, you can also use it for the same way. So you can either stabilize yourself with that or crank at victory points with that. Or both, depending on your income. So all in all, happiness production via the Rainpunk engines is a super powerful thing that you can really easily use depending on your on your likings. If you want to use a Rainpunk engine exclusively for happiness purposes, I strongly recommend aiming for the largest possible ones in your city, especially those with 4 slots. Number 4, let's talk about the shenanigans in the productivity area. So we have 3 pips here, so that means we can spin up to 6 units of rainwater per minute, 24 per season, and that's where our rain collectors leave us if we want to keep that thing entirely rolling. The most important and interesting part is the reliability thing that gives you a chance of extra production yields. So this is so interesting in so many ways. First of all, of course, you can use that for your specialized industries in your city to just put out more of the stuff that you want. You can also use it to increase the productivity of those things that you just need quite badly. My personal favorite examples are tool production. This part here is easily sustainable, and it doesn't even produce that terribly many cysts per season. It is really manageable. By the way, Blightrot, we're going to handle that topic a little bit later down the road. I haven't forgotten that. But all in all, these 2 pips, with that, you have your workshop 25% more productive in terms of yields and 50% faster. This is massive. Like, if you ever have a high need of a certain good, really well and fast done, one method. Or you have a you notice that this is the main part of your colony, like you're cranking out quality food, complex food like crazy, or whatever might be the case. Then you can also use that to just buffer up your productivity. I want to repeat here at this point, this is sustainable by 1 rain collector pretty easily, as we need only 48 units of water per year if we have a standard year. On higher difficulty levels, this is not working that easily anymore, but you get the idea. So productivity in this area is for me only something for emergency situations. It produces Blightrot like crazy. It eats through your rainwater also really fast, but if you have timed orders or stuff like a forbidden glade that requires something especially quickly done from your side, this can be really a lifesaver. So this is also an option that you should be aware of. But for your everyday situation, the reliability upgrade is all you need, and I find it most of the time quite questionable to use the efficiency on its own. I would recommend that if you just have not enough workers or you want to get something done really fast, some targeted production or something like that. But this is not for me something I would try to have standardized on by default. This is the setup that I like to use, as this makes your workshop tremendously more powerful. You should just know that this does create a little bit of Blightrot, but more about that after. One more topic in between. Number 5, beware the years 3, 6, and 9 if you are on prestige levels 3 and higher. If you use Rainpunk, the clearance season of these years spawns 5 Blightrot cysts by default. This is not that much of a big deal if you are prepared for that. But if you are not, it is really a deal breaker. So on these years, you should always, in the drizzle season, dial back a bit on your Rainpunk, check back on your blight posts, check back if you have the fuel to proceed as usual, or if you rather want to crank it down a notch, because these extra Blightrot cysts can spiral you out of control. It's easily counterable, but it's one of these little things, 3, 6, and 9. You'll get that into your bloodstream quite quickly, promise. Now, while we're at number 6, Blightrot. So Blightrot is, of course, the byproduct of the whole rainpunking. Blightrot is occurring for every 32 units of rainwater used. So that brings us up to a couple of interesting calculations. So this setup produces half a cyst per season on average. That means 1.5 cysts per year. And that shows pretty clearly how little burden it is in terms of blight fighting. You will need, though, extra fuel for that and extra manpower. The 1 pip variant does even create only quarter assist per season. So on average, in higher difficulties, you can just calculate quite easily a pip assist per year. So you won't make that much bad with it, even if you overshoot your goals with it. Overall, it is wise to consider that every time you click that thing, you basically spawn assist for the next storm season. Blight posts are the point where you transform fuel and workforce into corruption destruction, or yeah, it's pointed out like that. So that means the more Rainpunk you use, the more fuel hungry your city gets. That is really the entire equation. That means if your city is sitting on stupid amounts of fuel and you don't know what to do with your workforce in the later years, happens to me quite often, especially the later the years go down, it can be a magnificent idea to just Rainpunk it up, build 2 extra blight posts, build a few hydrants, and let them burn those little thingies. Especially if you are lucky enough to get yourself a couple of cornerstones that give you rewards for destroying blight cysts. This can easily spiral out of control into an entire Rainpunk industry. So, Blightrot is fuel and manpower consuming. If you have fuel and manpower, Blightrot is actually not that dangerous. But it is darn important to note that if you overdo it, the corruption can really spiral out of control and totally blow up your game. So never go too lightly on it. Number 7, I want to talk about that color coding here that these thingies have. It is a pretty simple one, but I find it very useful to note. So there's 3 colors, green, yellow, and blue. Green is dedicated to the food production. That means all buildings mainly related to food production will use green water. Yellow water is related to crafting and refining. So all the workshops that craft and refine something will use the clearance water. So you will find that on the provisioner, on people that make barrels and all those intermediate products, or the incense and scrolls and all those things. That's all clearance water. And the blue one, the storm water, that is for raw materials, building materials, tools, these workshops that provide metals, building materials, tools, and all those, they use the storm water. So this way you can easily consider yourself your drafting options. If you happen to find a green geyser really early on, you already know that you have extra productive food buildings. If you stumble into a blue geyser early on, you can really rest back and know that your bricks and planks and all those things can be produced easily and effectively and efficiently. This is really useful to know, and every one of these types sports a different advantage. The yellow ones can be really amazing in terms of production for things that increase resolve, so they have all their qualities, but if you know the categories already up ahead, it helps so much with the drafting and the idea what you can do with your city. So that just as one food for thought. Now, let's move on over to number 8, the water gathering stuff. So we already now know how much water gathering, how much water we need. So we now know that every pip consumes 2 units of rainwater per minute. That means you don't need to have these people working here permanently. It is just not that effective at all. As a rule of thumb, I really would leave one person on the rain collectors by default if you have a steady consumption. If you only have a consumption that is during the storms, because you use it only for the rain soothing, then you can pretty much only establish one dude, bring it up to the max, and then unemploy again, and you have that workforce back. Water gathering is mostly micro intense, but you can really use way less than the. You don't need to use workers permanently. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. You can always go for the needs that you have, and if you have a lot of rain punking going on, it really pays off to have people working permanently here. Foxes are extremely happy sitting here, so that is another really nice and cool thing to know. And yeah, water gathering is not much of a big deal. If you don't use much of it, you can use it very punctual. If you sporadically, I want to say. If you have a steady consumption of that stuff, it is a little bit more workforce binding, but on the other hand, you get much more back out of it. Either way, as a rule of thumb, try to unemploy people right away again if your water supplies are topped off and you're not constantly consuming anything. This just doesn't do anything good for you. So, number 9, last thing, when to use rainwater and on what. This is really, really difficult to say, but there's a couple of things that I want to point out here. So, rainwater, as we now know, can be either used for soothing the people or cranking up the productivity. So my personal approaches here are as follows. If I find a geyser early on and I am lucky enough to have a field kitchen, blast away. This is the easiest way to gather yourself a porridge income, and drafting a building that can produce porridge right afterwards stabilizes your food income situation no matter what. Even if you don't have humans that like that stuff, it doesn't matter that much, as it is a dirty, cheap, complex food that you can really use that easily. That is one of the things that I always like to use. But also, if you want to use it on the crude workstation, for example, that can be also quite beneficial, although costly. That is only something for maps that have a lot of metal available to recraft pipes. But an early Rainpunk crude workstation can also make these things much, much more effective and efficient. Overall, I personally like to use it if I don't know what to specialize into in my city. Always go for the largest workshop and turn it into a Rainpunk soother. You should always have that at least once in your city, in my humble opinion, as there will be always an opportunity when you're happy to just smack in a couple of people that can be just stabilizing the species resolve bank again. And when it comes down to the boosting of these productions, my personal favorites are using this stuff here, the extra production yields, for the things that are really stupidly costly, like tools, or those things where you have only a very limited amount of. My favorite examples are metal bars. So if you want to make yourself metal bars manually by smeltering them, that's also a pretty good use for this. So all in all, as a rule of thumb, this setup for reliability is extremely good if you notice that a certain material is really needed in your city and you're just suffering to get it up in the amount that you needed, in the time that you needed. These are really good opportunities. And the other opportunities, of course, are situations where here on this city, I have a stupidly high plant fiber production, so I could easily rainpunk up the Druid's hut for a extreme production of oil, or we could use that for an extreme production of fabric and have a massive production of coats. Either way, You should always aim for something that lets you win the game in some way, either being by massive exports or goods that just make your people stupidly happy. Like this is a pretty nice example. Oil is a fuel. Fuel production can be really, really massively important, and coats, they make the city happy. Either way, it's never too early to start rainpunking. Basically, the only thing that is a absolute necessity is a blight post with, let's say, at least 5 pieces of fuel available. This is it. You don't need more than that, as the low usages, like I calculated here, are not yielding that many cysts. Only if you only have 2 workshops running with that setup, only with 1 pip or 2 pips here. Let's say we have 2 workshops running with this setup. We have only 3 cysts at the end of the year that we have to deal with. This is really not that horrible and quite easy to manage, even in the harder years. So I hope that was helpful for you to give you a couple of ideas what to do with your rainpunking. The biggest hurdle when you're rainpunking are pipes. That is the hidden 10th point here on the list. Pipes are metal intense. Metal intense things mean that we have to suffer through the question, tools or pipes. So only you craft pipes if you know that you can win the game, because tools win the game with them, because tools are condensed victory points, so to say, in combination with exploration, that is. Alright, enough about that. I hope that was enough food for thought for you in the Rainpunk area. Let me know what you know. I mean, there's always so much more to know and so much more to say. These have been only my thoughts, and feel free to give the comment section a nice little add-on if I have overlooked something, or even if I'm somewhere wrong, please. I'm the last person who's not happy about being corrected about something, because that makes the video more goodo. Leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed, consider subscribing, and check out the description box. There's tons of links down there, among these my Discord channel, and also Patreon, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee. It would be really nice if you'd give them a look. A big thanks to all the supporters who already did. And there's also a channel membership program that allows you to just watch stuff earlier than other people if you want to support me there. There's never going to be any paywalled content on my side, though. Don't think anything wrong when you see that channel membership. It's just a different way of saying thanks for the content and letting you watch all the stuff that I pre-schedule. Either way, enough talk. Thanks for being around. Thanks for watching the video up until the very end. It means a terrible lot to me, and I really mean it. And I hope you have a grand day. See you soon. Goodbye.